Welcome everyone. This is our third webinar on credit. We wanted to make sure that we shared information on before, during, and this is the after webinar, which is meant to support you in your journey. And if you are watching this, congratulations. It means that you've been discharged from your bankruptcy or consumer proposal, so very good. Or maybe you're watching this in anticipation of rebuilding your worth as you go forward, so yay as well. Either way, taking time to really watch this webinar shows that you have a brighter financial future ahead of you. So congratulations. This webinar is really centered around your credit after you are discharged from bankruptcy or consumer proposal. And our hope here at Bromwich+Smith is that everybody gets an automatic discharge. So I'm really excited if you're watching this right now. Today we want to make sure that we provide you great information. Obviously you're done and we've celebrated that, but we want to talk a little bit about common errors that must be corrected. So one of the things that happens in bankruptcy and proposal is that your creditors are meant to update your credit report, and oftentimes we see that may or may not happen. And so it's just really important that you're aware of these common errors. So if you go out back into the world to get credit after your discharge, which you absolutely should be able to, that you're aware of those, and then ultimately what you can do about it. And I wish that I was the person who had all the information, but we're very excited to welcome back Richard Moxley. Thanks for being here, Richard. Richard, we're really honored to have him here today. He's been a mortgage broker for 8 years and got really interested in credit through that journey, which ultimately led him to writing the best-selling book, The 9 Rules of Credit. Highly recommended if you haven't use that as a resource yet. He's also the host of Credit TV, which is another great resource to understand credit. And now he is working full-time to repair credit report errors and fraud. And frankly, one of the people, or the people that Richard works with most often, are people who have been discharged from bankruptcy and proposal. So great person to be here today and sharing all of his great knowledge with us. So Richard, I'm going to pass it over to you for you to give us all of your great information about how to rebuild credit once they've been discharged.
Perfect. Congrats, you're done, but you got to love the but in there and the asterisks of what the next steps are. So the first step that I get all my clients to do, and it's very important that you do as well, is that you get a copy of both your Equifax and TransUnion credit reports. And the websites are there. Click on there, except for we have a little spelling error. It's Equifax, so it's just an extra F in there. But as far as Equifax and TransUnion.ca, that's where you go and get copy of the credit report. A lot of people will just grab one or the other, and I'm not a big fan of doing just one or the other. You have to get both, and people get really confused on why, and the reason why is because your bankruptcy or proposal or errors on one will show up and not the other. And some banks will use Equifax, some will use TransUnion, but a lot of them will have access to both depending on what type of account or financing that you're applying for. So you want to make sure that you get both so that you can get both corrected now, as opposed to waiting a few years, going and applying, and then finding out that there is an error and getting declined, which is why I left the mortgage side of things to focus on credit full time. Was essentially that reason, as I got tired of seeing people come in and they did everything right, so they thought, but then they had one error or a couple errors on the credit report still, and now they're getting declined for best rates and best terms, which I didn't think was fair. Another thing is that a lot of people will go online. There's a lot of free services to get your credit report. If you want to get your reports from there, that's fine. I don't recommend it though. And the reason why is because the reports that they give you are generally shortened, or they don't have all the information that you're needing to see in order to confirm if there's errors or not. So I really do suggest that you get the Equifax.ca, the TransUnion.ca. We'll also provide ways for you to get a copy of your credit reports for free. So we can provide that link to you. Nothing the trustee can do about the errors. This is a big problem that trustees have, is that what will happen is the banks will come back and say, well, there's errors on your credit report, we can't approve you, so it's the trustee's fault. I just need to clarify this up for all the trustees out there. The trustees do not have access or the ability to correct the errors on your behalf. This is something that the banks, the government, the credit reporting agency, everybody is going to point the finger back on you to say you have to fix your own credit. And 99% chance there are going to be some kind of errors from the bankruptcy or proposal on the credit report there. So that's why it's so essential that you guys get this checked. Trustees submit all the information off to the OSB, which is the governing body that controls bankruptcy and proposals, and the OSB sends it off to Equifax and TransUnion every week. And through that process, there's glitches, there's millions of people where there's information being updated on a regular basis, so there's tons of errors that happen. So that's why you need to make sure that everything is correct and not rely on someone else to do it for you. The next is common errors that must be corrected. So I have some snapshots here of things that you need to be looking for as far as when you do have a copy of the Equifax and TransUnion credit reports. You can see here on the screen where it will be different examples of both Equifax and TransUnion and what I'm talking about on how it needs to be corrected. So the first one that's very common, and there can be other errors, but these are the most common errors that I see from someone that has just been discharged from a bankruptcy or proposal. The first one, the balances need to show zero or unknown. So depending on what version of the credit report that you're seeing, the balances need to be zero or showing up as unknown. If they are not, to future banks and lenders, they will see that as you still owe that money, and they will include it in their debt servicing. So I won't get into the technical terms, but it will slow you down or limit ability to qualify for additional finance or get you declined right off the bat. So you want to make sure everything's zero, regardless if there's a little note on there that says included in bankruptcy or proposal on that actual account. Every account that was included in the bankruptcy or proposal must show zero, otherwise that's going to cause problems for you. The next one is the bankruptcy or consumer proposal needs to show an end date. Okay, so if it shows disposition unknown or if there's nothing recorded in these sections, you need to make sure that that is updated. Every week, the OSB updates Equifax and TransUnion on who has been discharged. So this should be updated, but like I said, there's lots of technical glitches that happen. And so you want to make sure that the proposal or bankruptcy is showing completed or that there's a discharge date on there and it matches what you have as far as your records. It's very important for you to keep the documentation that you received from the trustee, regardless of how long it's been from your discharge or completion of the program. But the certificate of discharge and the list of creditors are the most important. Now, even if you have this documentation, though, when you go to a bank or lender, they have to see it corrected on the actual credit report. Otherwise, they cannot proceed with the financing. So just because you have the documentation doesn't mean that you don't have to get your credit fixed, because the banks and lenders have to see it through their system fixed with Equifax and TransUnion. So the next one, if you have gone through a consumer proposal, chances are they are going to have some kind of note or the rating incorrect on your credit report. A consumer proposal has the rating of 7, and that tells the system to take it off after 3 years from discharge. And it is slightly better for your credit to have a 7 as opposed to the 9, which is what the bankruptcy is. So if you see a rating or a letter with any kind of 7 behind it, that's great. If it's less than that, then that's fine too. But any accounts that were included should not have a 9 behind it if you went through a consumer proposal. Otherwise, that tells the computer system that you actually went through a bankruptcy, and that can slow you down, and we don't want that for you. The other thing is just look through the notes, and a lot of times an account will show that it went through a bankruptcy or have a note included in bankruptcy. That needs to be corrected as well, because the underwriter will look at that and say, well, okay, what's going on? We see a proposal in the public record, but then we have this note on this account saying that I went through the bankruptcy. They want to make sure that that's corrected as well. And then we get to student loans, the absolute nightmare of rebuilding credit. And not anything to do with the student loan, but just the fact that what happens, or one thing that you have to ensure that you do, is make sure that if the student loan was included in the bankruptcy or proposal, that you get or confirm that the balance is zero and that it's showing correctly that it was included. If it wasn't, what happens is those payments are frozen while you're in the bankruptcy or proposal. However, once you have completed, you have to reach out to student loans, both the provincial and the federal government, depending on which one shows up on your report, and make sure that those payments are reactivated. A lot of people think, oh, this is great. I don't have any payments coming out. They haven't harassed me for payments, so maybe I'm good. Maybe I don't have to pay it. The problem is that they generally will figure it out sooner or later that you're not paying them and you should, or that you're discharged. And when they do, what they will do is they will backdate from the time that you were discharged and say, well, you should have been making these payments, and so you've missed the last 9 payments, and now it's up on your credit report as 9 late payments when just waiting for them to take the payments out. It's not that you didn't want to pay or wouldn't have paid. It's just a kind of a glitch in the system. So you want to make sure that if you have a student loan on your credit report, the phone numbers are out on the actual account there. And so you want to reach out to whatever it says there, give them the last few digits of the account number that you have and that you see on the credit report, and just make sure that you get set up with them, that everything has restarted again and that those payments are coming out so you don't get hit with late payments. So the next thing is, now that I've told you all of the problems that could possibly show up, what can you do about it? With Canada, Equifax and TransUnion both legally have to provide ways for you to correct these issues on the credit report. So you want to reach out to both Equifax and TransUnion and provide them with a list of things that is incorrect on your credit report. So, and then provide them the documentation that they're asking for, the ID, the list of creditors, the certificate of completion or bankruptcy or completion, and make sure that that is submitted off to them, and then that could be corrected. Now, if you need help or you don't want to do it yourself, that's where the whole reason why eCredit Fix was put in place to begin with. Sometimes it can be challenging. Some people just don't want to deal with it whatsoever. So if that is you and you don't want to deal with it, or you've had problems, or you've tried to get it fixed and it's just not working for you, then you can reach out to eCredit Fix and I can help you as much as I can. And then for those that are referred by Bromwich+Smith or have seen this presentation, just mention that and then there's a discount for you.
Awesome. Thanks, Richard, for all of that great information. I have to say I learned a few things myself in there, so much appreciated for that, and thank you very much for the discount for those of our clients who are interested in getting some support versus doing it on their own, because I know it can be a bit frustrating. However, all of this information so that you can get back on your feet, rebuild your worth, and be in the best financial position possible so that you can access credit and carry on with all of those dreams that we all have. So, so definitely if you're interested in connecting on social, we'd love to connect with you. We have an Instagram account at Rebuild Your Worth, and of course our Facebook account at Bromwich+Smith, or our website at bromwich+smith.com. And if you would like to take advantage of the offer from eCredit Fix, I know you guys have a website as well.
Yep.
eCreditFix.ca. And then also can connect on Facebook at eCredit Fix. So thank you, Richard, for being here today. Thank you, everyone, for tuning into this presentation, and we do hope that you found it helpful. Have a wonderful day.